I would now request Shri Prafulla Ketkar, editor, Organiser Weekly, to enlighten the audience with his worthy words.
Namaste and good evening to all. My prayers to the Ishvara within every one of us. This unique program, and where I'm proud that I'm part of it, and organizer as a weekly that has been fighting the cause of Dharma and the nation for last almost 75 years, is giving representation to articulate the views through this platform. I will take this question of being a soft target with one fundamental framework, but I will deal with it as president of today's program, MP Balakrishnan said, and Vijayanji also rightly articulated that what are the solutions? And I'm sure my co-panelist, co-panelji and PKD, both will elaborate on their views. And I would request the other participants also to share their experiences while dealing with this. Because our job is to articulate the views, our job is to understand, study, and make a broader intellectual understanding of the issues from legal, political, social, cultural perspective. But the people who are fighting the cause of temple, fighting the cause of deity, fighting the cause of land, fighting the cause of values, fighting the cause of their autonomy as a trustees, they are the real ones who have to share their experiences. But at the intellectual theoretical level, I would like to start with one important philosophical proposition. And in a way, it is a continuation of what Mr. Vijayanji said. In 1945, philosopher Karl Popper, he has been talking about various kinds of paradoxes. And one of the important articulation by Popper is in his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, where he talks about the paradox of tolerance. He says unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, and if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed, and tolerance with them also will be destroyed. What he says, interestingly, is very important. Remember, this is a British scholar who is saying this. I do not imply, for instance, that we should always suppress the utterance of intolerant philosophies as long as they can counter them by a rational argument and keep them in check by public opinion. Suppression would certainly be most unwise. But what he says, that we should claim the right to suppress them if necessary, even by force, for it may easily turn out that they are not prepared to meet us on the level of a rational argument. Now tell me one single reason. If there is some incident in France, for example, and a French government is taking some position, why there should be attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh? or for that matter in India. What is the logic behind this? But nobody will talk this rationally. Not the so-called rationalist, atheist, non-believers also will take a position on this. And the primary reason for this is we don't understand the edifice of our tolerance, and we don't understand the basis of the intolerance of others. And the fundamental issue lies here is we have others branded as us as an ism, and we blindly accepted it. Now, I being a student of political science and a media person for such a long time, I always raise this issue. An ism has to have one fundamental framework with a set political objective propounded by one person based on one book, that is called ism. So Marx and Marxism and Communist Manifesto or Das Kapital is a classic example of ism. Even in that sense, Islam is an ism. Christianity is an ism. But it is never called as Islamism or Christianism. While Hindu, which is not propounded by one person, not based on one book, not based on one way of worship, is branded as ism. So the imposition of intolerance is always on Hindus. As Vijayanji was showing, he was showing some pictures, and there was one beautiful tweet by Vedacharya Professor David Frawley, where he says, yes, Hindus are intolerant. Well, Muslims are, Hindus are being attacked in India, even after being majority, and they are attacked in Pakistan because they are in minority, and still they are intolerant. This imposition of external conceptualization on us has created a lot of problems. And I see this as a fundamental problem, that our minds, our conceptions are colonized. The Hindus who do not understand the concept of dharma and equate that with religion are essentially colonized minds. Now our duty is, so on the one hand, we do not understand ourselves, and on the other hand, we do not understand the intolerant towards us. So on both the sides, we are on the disadvantage, and that's why obviously become a soft target. So and because in the context of Kerala, Sabrimala shrine has brought this issue to the forefront. And I always ask this issue, that why do you question on the issue of gender equality only to Hindus? Let the women decide. We believe in what Swami Vivekananda said. What is good and what is bad for us. Our job as a society has always been to empower and encourage. She will decide. It was not the centrally defined idea either in Vatican or Mecca has decided what is good or bad for the local deity, because the concept of deity is not just to do with way of worship. The deity has ruled that area, that city, not just temple. All customs, traditions, culture, ways, food habits, everything is, defined with the concept of deity. Now, unfortunately, earlier Islamic invaders and later the British realized this importance because they studied, especially the British East India Company gazetteers and the missionaries came with them. They studied this meticulously, the importance of this. And they realized that unless the prevalent education system, which Acharya Dharmapal analyzed when it comes to the Chennai, the then Madras province, and the concept of deity and the temple associated with each and every town is there, we cannot disturb the social structures of this particular society. And therefore, they evolved a legal mechanism in such a way, the Britishers, where the law started applying only to the broader Hindu Dharma related boards, trusts, customs, traditions, temples, everything. And the so-called minority, calling yourself non-Hindu, has become a privilege. Being Hindu has always become disadvantageous from the legal or the state point of view. The colonial state construct, based on the European idea, always allowed that to happen. And the ideologies, the binary of ideologies called liberalism and communism, always played around this Western construct. And therefore, we see this paradox prevalent everywhere in India. European liberalism is facing a deadlock in their own country now. But unfortunately, their liberal children in India, they're always blind towards the Hindu sentiments. What is the biggest strength of being Hindu? We need to understand that and articulate that very forcefully. This is the only land, and this is the only thriving civilization where I always say this, that if Europe has given us political democracy, if the US has taught us economic democracy, it is this land that taught the entire world spiritual democracy. Everybody has a right to choose his or her own path. We have right to deny the existence of God. We have a right to create new gods. We have right to declare ourselves a god, because we believe that there is an inherent unity that is expressed in diversity. So we celebrate diversity. Unfortunately, the people who believe in uniformity, whether communism or Islamism or Christianism or liberalism, they start imposing, they start considering this as a weakness and starts attacking. We also intellectually, unfortunately, if you see the initial movements in our Enlightenment period, each and every reformer is talking about the weaknesses of Hinduism, and the first weakness they talk about is multiplicity of polytheism, considered as the biggest weakness, while this has been civilizationally the biggest strength. In fact, that is the strength because of which we have survived as a civilization for thousands of years. Otherwise, you see what happened with Incas, with Red Indians, with any other civilization or a tribe all over India, wherever these colonizers went, they completely finished the existing society, structure, civilization, whether it is in Australia, whether in Africa, whether in Latin America, whether in America. You go anywhere and you won't find a single, in fact, you have to see those existing civilizations in museums now. The colonizers are you know, the real mainstream there. In India, despite the attack on this civilization for almost 1,000 and 1,200 years, we have not just survived and kept our idea of Swa alive. Whenever we fought against this, it was based on the idea of Swaraj, Swadharma, Swabhasha, and therefore what we need now is, instead of making these fights isolated, rekindling the spirit of Swa, the selfhood, among each and every individual. And temple should become the, you know, resurgent force. I remember when I asked this question to let Ashokji Singhal in 1990s, why so much of a fight? As a young student, I asked this question: why so much of fight over a temple in Ayodhya? And he gave a very interesting reply. He said it is not a fight over temple. He said it is a fight over Rama. It is a fight for the resurgence of Bharat as an idea. It is the Indian concept of Hindu concept of polity that needs to survive. It is the revival of self. This civilizational identity of Bharat is symbolized through this particular place called Rama Janmabhoomi, and that is fight for this Rama Janmabhoomi. Now we see the difference over the period of time in last 3 decades, where one idea that was rekindled somewhere on 22nd and 23rd December 1949, where one of the important persons, K.K. Nair, who as a district collector of Faizabad took a stand and allowed Ramlala to be instated there. And now we see the outcome. Now we have to teach each and every individual, our education system, our family values, our entire social milieu, allow our children to completely get colonized with the ideas, and the moment that process starts, they completely go away from the real fundamentals of dharma. We also start ourselves seeing as just a sect or a religion. Sect and a religion is just one part of that larger dharma. And therefore, instead of arguing over the sect or a religion, realizing that inherent unity of dharma, re-establishing that, rekindling that process of realizing we are the best, and that's why we have survived, creating that confidence among each and every individual, and creating a unified voice, collective intellectual fight for the cause of saving our temple traditions, our icons, our deities, our values. This is our job, this is our duty, not just for ourselves, but for the entire humanity. And I'm saying this very responsibly, simply because this is the only land that still celebrates diversity. If you really want to have open society, and if you really want to, we need to present ourselves as ancient, still most modern. If we start doing that for the next generation is ready and open to be torchbearer of dharma. Unfortunately, our middle-aged generation, including me, we have failed in taking that battle forward. We have to just pass on them the real baton. We ourselves have to decolonize ourselves and ensure that our next generations are not colonized. That battle has already begun. That change is already seen. For me, the beginning of reconstruction of temple in Ayodhya is a stepping stone towards that larger goal. The first sign of colonization is removed, and now a grand temple is being constructed. The idea of Bharat Mata that thrives on the idea of dharma. Now that temple has to be the next stage, and going towards that, we need to understand that while keeping our inherent spirit of acceptance and respect, because tolerance is a negative concept. We just don't tolerate each other. We accept and respect, but it cannot be a one-way traffic. And we have to make this bold and clear. Acceptance and respect has to be mutual. And the day we start doing that, the way start asserting ourselves as a political Hindu, as Mr. Garilal Jain called famously in 1990s. Political Hindu who is aware of his religion or sect based on dharmic values and the civilizational role of Bharat and Bharat Mata to guide the entire humanity. I think we will not be facing this problem. We will be a guiding force for other societies who are now facing this problem of paradox of intolerance. And it is our duty for the entire world to bring out entire humanity from this paradox of intolerance. I believe that such a dialogue with various temple trusts and societies, and bringing the intellectuals on one platform to discuss, debate, deliberate, and reaching to certain conclusions over the social cultural problems that we as a society are facing. I think nobody will dare to take our strengths as weaknesses. Nobody will dare to make us as a soft target. We have to be sensitive and proactive rather than reactive. But for that, we have to prepare ourselves. We have to prepare our next generations. I believe such dialogue will certainly help us in doing that for the future. I wish this endeavor a grand success. I believe every state level, such dialogue should be initiated. All temples, all societies should be brought on one platform, and legally, socially, culturally, and politically, they should devise a grand strategy to fight for the cause of dharma. Let there be a victory of dharma over adharma. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom. It will be a great pleasure for us to listen to you again in our future events.